Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. This show is all about breaking barriers and changing the game. Our guests will feature some of today's most successful female entrepreneurs and other advocates of our industry as well. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, female-led entrepreneurship drives change on multiple levels. We want to empower women in the trade industry like you so you can maximize your potential, stay balanced, achieve long-term success, and claim ownership over your life. Let's get started.
Talk about blended average ticket, because I don't think a lot of people know what that is or know why
that's
it's
another,
important.
That's another stigmatized thing because mainly
not to get off topic.
It matters, right? Because you have to know what every customer's worth.
But why does it matter?
Well, hang on. What I blame the sales trainer, so don't be mad at me and use Cassie's words, block me, sales trainers. But it's all the ambiguity of average ticket, zero ticket, what's my conversion rate, blah, 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 all the bullshit, right? Fundamentally, once you actually, Landon's done 2 times as much as me, but once you actually talk about business valuations and participate in how sophisticated investors look at your business, they only really care about one thing. And it's lifetime value.
Okay.
Right? But then
lifetime value is not your average ticket.
But it backs into it, right? And so just like that, so if private equity or sophisticated investor went around to home service companies and said, what's your customer lifetime value? They'd say, I think over 10 years, the customer spends 30 grand with me because it's 10 in HVAC and 10 in plumbing. But the truth is you don't have a way to really quantify that. And so when you boil lifetime value down into call by call, every call counts. You got to be able to measure what's that customer. If it's $30,000, well, then that's over a 10-year period. That's $3,000 a year. And what is my actual unique customer spending with me, right? And so call by call, whether you know your lifetime value or not, whether you know your gross blended average or not, once you expose what steps your guys are skipping, right, then every call counts. And that's what fundamentally gross blended average.
And it also breaks your heart.
Yeah, well, that too.
But
look, the truth is, what it forces you actually, what contractors are honestly, as we've been through this 50 times, what contractors are actually most afraid of with call by call is finding out.
I hear that and feel that deeply.
Because then they don't know how to handle it. And the truth is, let me make this one last point. To everybody watching podcast future, this is evergreen because the podcast, you guys are going to be so famous in 3 years. The podcast, we have 1 million downloads. So everybody listening.
Did you know Evergreen was Hillary Clinton's alias name with Secret Security?
Anyway.
Fantastic. Shipping containers. Not every one of your...
Landon and I have the same FYP.
Not every... TikTok. Not every one of your employees are meant to be there. I know that's kind of harsh.
It does hurt.
And it stings.
It hurts.
But they're not who you would start on the championship drive.
Or they started with you, but they're not going to end with you.
And but you can't broad stroke and call somebody bad. Mm-hmm. You've got to really identify what their symptoms are.
It's okay to say they're not bad. It's just not. They're not the right person.
No, and then sometimes they're not bad at all. You're bad as their manager.
No. Exactly. That's where I'm going. Yeah. Right. It's you. If you haven't identified exactly how to support them, then you can't really improve them.
Yep.
Right? Like, not everybody fits the puzzle, but not everybody's meant to wear the jersey. And once you see that, you've got to be able to do something about it. But that's what contractors are afraid of. Like, we're virtual right, like, well, then my guys are not going to like me following them
because it's so uncomfortable.
Well, so your
I think it's a
company
presentation.
name is Champion, right? So that if you're going to think of it like this. Do you know a championship caliber team in any sport in history that didn't have high-level coaches at each position? Like whether it's, I don't know what your sport is, baseball, football, like calling the plays, like you got a quarterback's coach, you got to see, like that's what happens. Somebody is watching what you're doing and making you better every time because they want you to be a championship caliber person.
Right.
If somebody doesn't like that and you're a solid leader and coach, then you may not have a championship caliber person. They just
100%.
That's why I literally joke
about finding out what they're bad at, and they're not secure in that.
Y'all think I'm joking in our messages when I've been talking about prime time and how listen, I don't know shit about sports, but I know he came in and
coming
about 40%.
We coming.
Listen, when he came in and dropped 40% of his people, and when 90 days ago, because I have it in my phone, on the 11th of October was 90 days into this process. We lost 40% of our staff. Either we had to let them go or they left, and I cannot.
And your lifetime value's doubled.
I had a employee that was a salesman for us, and he sent the management in Teams, not in a face-to-face, in Teams, the management, a big long message about how he's been thinking about the pressure that's put on him on the day-to-day because we need sales, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. And the entire time I'm reading it, I'm just like, what? Because my response was, Major League Baseball players, when they're walking out of the dugout to go to bat, the coach says, hey, we need to run. Yeah. Right? But they're a Major League Baseball player, right? They don't need you to tell them that because they're getting paid to actually get you a run. Yeah. But the coach says it every time. And then the third base coach, because does the Major League Baseball player still need a first base and a third base coach? Because technically they know they are the professionals. They've been playing baseball. They don't need the coach. Yeah, they do. They have to have someone behind them telling them what to do. And so if you get into the mentality of, I don't need someone to help me through it, I don't need someone to fix me, I'm perfect every time I walk up to the customer's house. No, you're not. Yeah. No, you're not, because you are comfortable. And then so
well, and I think employees really crave structure, even though that's not what they're saying.
Yeah, they do.
Like
we talk about that a lot.
It's like kids. It's like, my kids know every night we're going to start getting in the bath around 8 o'clock, bedtime around 8:30, and we have the structure because there's a lot of freedom within structure. Mm-hmm. And they know how far they can go, and they're not left to their own devices. I mean, it may not be like PC to say that, but it's true. I think we all crave structure to an extent.
How is every baseball player measured or football player measured? It's like lifetime batting average, slugging percentage, home run percentage.
Oh, you mean like conversion rate and close rate?
I don't know how to add to sports commentary.
And they crave the ability to get to improve those metrics, right?
It's the same thing.
And they also crave being on a winning team, and a winning team requires that stuff.
And look, it's like Eric Thomas, right? E.T. the preacher. He literally says, and he probably got it from somewhere.
Is he a preacher?
Is Eric Thomas? I don't know who Eric Thomas.
I thought that was a marketing guy.
Rival Digital.
Rival Digital. Well, I immediately was like, you know him. He's a good dude.
I don't know anything about sports.
But he literally says, set the standard. The next thing he says, hold the standard. Then you fucking raise the standard,
and
right?
people don't like it, and it's okay.
Yeah, and listen, but when you set the standard, the literal next thing is hold the standard. That doesn't mean do whatever the fuck you want when I send you out to a customer's house. Right? That doesn't mean I trust you that you're going to close that sale. It means that I've got to support you through it. Now, but that's where it makes contractors have the hard talk, because they don't exactly have the experience to ascend that. And guess what? Even the best businesses and with best brands like you guys need a coach, and you need somebody giving you 100%, that blind spot. And guess what? You got to show up to the huddle that next day and know your fucking numbers. Yep. Because if you don't know your numbers, then that says less about the process and it says more about you.
Like, it's not like, we looked at our P&L for December and we did really good, because you're halfway through January and you don't know where you stand. And I think we were guilty of that. We didn't know what we didn't know, and I think now we know so much more than we knew, and so we can make decisions faster and quicker.
And it's like Brent, I was talking out back with Brent. He's like, listen, I am so much further along this process than I thought I would be, because I didn't know what to expect. But I feel like there's just so much more. And I said, guess what? In 6 months, there's going to be a whole new level.
Isn't it funny how that works?
We don't want to unlock any more levels.
Well, the truth of it is,
Brent's good with it.
We need to unlock some levels.
At the next level, I think you're going to have like 1 million podcast downloads, so you're going to be busy.
Lewis, that is not my goal here, okay?
Well, now we are.
Lewis, do you know me at all?
Goals now. Well, okay, so I lost my train
of thought.
Did we
ask any questions from our show?
We've got imagine this. Like, just random thought, right? Imagine your warehouse person, every single one of your CSRs, your brand new CSR from last week. Imagine if that person knew, just, by looking, by just at a glance, what everybody's KPIs were, what everybody's GBA was, what it had to be, what the key performance indicators of the company. Where imagine the warehouse guy down to that person knew what that was. Do you think you could be $1 billion business? That's what it takes.
That's what it
your
takes.
business is a school for the employees to learn this stuff.
That's what I was talking about, or that's what I was thinking was I would venture to say 95% of the trades companies are owned by people who don't have a college degree and just went into business. There's five there. I just can't imagine that there's
dumbing their
more
way
than
down.
77% of the space that are just mom and pop without higher education.
But even the ones that are not mom and pop, that maybe they got a little bit bigger, whatever, they still didn't know. Like sometimes I still say, who the hell gave me the keys to this business, right? Because I've had to figure a lot of stuff out. And then you've got the ones that are mega performers, and we want to talk shit about them and say this and this and this. But what they're doing is working because they've actually put the fundamentals of just business into the business.
Yeah.
And that's when I think just going back to the things like what we were saying with Texas earlier, would you do it all over again? A lot of the no comes from all the trauma of not knowing, but then also not being willing. I was our biggest problem for a while because I wouldn't humble ourselves to say we needed a coach or we needed this or we needed that. But you have to have someone helping you because no one taught you what to do here.
And look, call by call for us, again, he's doing it 2 times as long as me, but I'm pretty up to speed. Once you have visibility into how you improve the productivity of your employees, well, there's another level. And right, so what it's turned into is as we've been helping people get call by call and all that, right? But it becomes, okay, well, the last thing you want is to improve your revenue productivity. And then, like Landon said about me, that I had to learn, not make any more money. Mm-hmm. And so it's evolved into what we do for businesses now. We help them platform, right? Why the most valuable businesses in our space, they're platforms. They're super regional groups of companies that have the management infrastructure beyond call by call. And it's how do I know that when I generate more value from the customer, that it returns to the equity holders as investors.
Say that a different way.
Landon can, like you said,
translate.
Yeah, he'll
Landon,
translate.
and then I'll translate
So
what Landon said.
So the most valuable businesses in the space, if you look at the people that become platforms, like people are talking
Explain
about,
what a platform is,
like
Landon.
Horizon, Dave Geiger, or
A group of businesses.
Yeah. So like the initial if I'm a private equity investor, any investor for that matter, and I want to invest in a business, I'm going to go out and look for what I think is the best of the best in that business, right? So I can invest in that business. I can take my capital and resources and fuel that business, and that business can expand to whatever level they can expand to, right? Or I can go out and acquire what they call tuck-in businesses, and we can grow that business organically and through tuck-ins and just expand profitability. So that what there's going to be a demonstrable playbook that they know. Like I generate a call,
that they get a return.
It's going to be run this way every time.
Right? And so a platform, so to speak, would be kind of like that initial investment. That's the valuable investment. That's like the diamond in the rough that an investor will invest in because that's going to return them something predictable and reliable.
And it gives them a pathway to build other businesses underneath it,
Yeah.
other profit centers, other income streams, right? Because back to plumbing. Right. Again, for some of our early combos, thank God you weren't the first one. We helped plumbing call by call. But what is probably going to take a lot of plumbers and electricians by surprise is for us, it's actually easier to help plumbers and electricians implement call by call. You think call by call is such a stigma that it's HVAC? Plumbing is even easier because guess what the difference is? Most of the plumbers don't actually want to sell shit. They want to fix stuff. And
they want to work with their hands.
And that's call by call, that's the problem. And so the arcane, the old school way to try to help elevate plumbers is here's your maintenance checklist. Well, guess what? No matter whether you make it 9 points or 30 points, they don't want to fucking do it. So why you come in every day and talk to plumbers about, well, guys, we got to do the maintenance checklist. You're doing something they don't have an interest in, right? So back to, is the employee sitting in the right seat or are they a bad person? If they don't want to fix shit, if they don't want to sell stuff, they just want to fix it. Stop making them sell stuff and just get the guy out there that actually wants to sell it. And that's what you do in call by call.
Well, and it's I know for us, it's really allowed us an opportunity to ask that question to our team where we all had them all doing the same thing and say, hey, do you want to be an install? Do you want to talk to the customer? Do you want to do this? And it's evolved into, they thought they wanted to be in this spot, but then they did it and they're like, you know what? We want to be over here. So it's given them a lot of control over their path to success.
And then
They'll
when you-
just like talk to Brent and be like, I think I really want to be an install. And then he figures out a way.
Well, I'm looking at your lifetime value. I don't want you fucking talking to my customers either.
Right.
So let's get you over to the install
No,
department.
but what's hard is we've had some guys that their numbers show that they're really good
Well, that's
talking
good
to
too.
customers, but they don't really want to be doing it.
Yeah.
But they were valuable, or they weren't.
So we have
and they're
some
gone.
questions. Number one, Logan Marshall said 4 of my favorite humans. What's up, crew? So,
Who's that guy?
but Logan, I was about to tell you. I'm like,
I'm pretty sure Landon was messaging him as we walked in.
yeah, love Logan. So, okay. Question: what are some tips on building up the tech before an opportunity call to drive results? Who do you recommend this conversation comes from in the business?
So we're gonna have 2 different viewpoints because he's been able to build and scale businesses from a leadership framework. I need the numbers, right? And so that's kind of the cuts that I need the numbers before I can decide. You can't, whether it's your CSR, your general operations manager, your technician, you can't get them to change their beliefs unless you're replacing their old beliefs with their new beliefs. And so you have to sum that down. You have to enroll them in the numbers, right? Why do we need to have a customer lifetime value of above $1,000? Because it costs you $1,000 to run the call. So, Mr. Technician, before I give you why I need you to follow this process that proves out the results, I need you to understand, before I can convince you that that's what you got to do, I need you to understand that right now, every time you run a call, you're losing the company $100. And I imagine you don't think we can be around a very long time if every time you roll a truck 3 times a day, we lose $300, 10 grand a month, right? Oh, well, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, show me how I do something.
I am a
about
big
that, right?
believer in that, of transparency, and some things that I talked about the last 3 days before today. I was in business planning for 2024, and there was a lot, like, we had a great year, but there was a lot that we left on the table.
Yeah.
And it was honestly a few times made me sick.
Yeah.
And had I actually understood the numbers better throughout the year, I could have managed them better. But it really came down to, number one, our managers didn't know them as well as they had thought they did. But then also, we've never told our technicians that.
Yeah.
We have never said, you are really nice,
Yeah.
but you've
got great reviews, but unfortunately, sometimes we got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But like, all jokes aside, and it's why, because the numbers, frankly, I think intimidate contractors, because most of them were techs and stuff first, and they weren't taught it. Then back to your point about business being the education for the team, it's really simple. You know what your overhead is. Like, even if your bookkeeper tells you and you don't know it, they tell you, well, your overhead's $300,000, whatever. Then you just divide that number by the number of, demand maintenance calls you run, single jobs as we call it. And you're like, okay, well, if it's 300 grand and I run 1,000 calls, well, that means every time you roll a truck, it costs $300.
Yeah.
And so then the second gap is, well, how do
Sounds close.
right? How do I score my guys against it is the second gap. And then once yes, of course, as this is evergreen, of course we can help you. But that aside, once you know what your guy is worth, is your GBA, Leslie, as you asked, you just take their total revenue production divided by the number of single jobs they run. Once you know what that is, now you can enroll them in, hey, this is why I need to give you a new belief system, because your current belief system is costing us money. And so you have to, in my world, you have to start at the numbers, or you deal with a lot less consistent result. Because guess what? The team member's best day is the day they interview. And whenever you call them in for a meeting, they're telling you the truth when they say they want to do it. But the truth is, they want to do it. But the truth is they don't.
I don't know.
Do it.
We have differing perspectives on that. I think we have similar perspectives. It's just from a different angle. And so Lewis's angle, I think, is from a management angle, right? This is how you enroll the techs. This is how you talk to them. This is how you get them to understand it, et cetera. And I believe all of that. But I think maybe what happens, some of that lacks. Like, the biggest gap, I think, with all this private equity consolidation and all this stuff, the biggest gap in our industry is that there isn't, like, from a GM, from ops level, probably even GM level and beyond, there's really no management training, right? So most people get into this business and management is a skill that you have to learn and you have to practice, right? Just like any trade skill. And most people come in from the trade side and don't have the management side, right? So there's that piece that Lewis is trying to solve for with how do you do it. But in order to do that, you also have to like lead, right? So I take a look at like a leadership perspective in a business. And, you know, sometimes when Brent's a little gruff, it's like, screw it. If he doesn't want to do it, he's out. I'm like, and it's like, whoa. I'm like, no, go with Brent. You know, I like that. and here's
If
why.
you've never heard Landon blow up on a conference call, you got to catch one.
Here's why, because like the companies I've worked with over time, I've seen a similar thing, right? So there's this, I'm a little trepidatious. I'm going to walk and, I'm worried about what the technicians are going to say. I'm worried about what they're going to think about call by call. They might get their feelings hurt, Leslie.
Right now,
they might,
Landon.
it's, they I know they could benefit from this coaching, but they may not want it. What if they revolt? And it's like, okay, but then you have the other side. It's like, I'm the leader. I'm taking charge. We're going to grow this company. We're going to do this. And I'm like, give me 5 of those people.
Right.
And like, you can wind them up in the wrong direction 5 times, and they're still going to charge down the field.
Right.
And I think like,
Right or wrong, but it's the attitude.
yeah, I think so. So there's a management side and there's a leadership side, and you can have all the things, but if you can't just force the message home because this is the right thing to do, it's going to help you, it's going to grow the business. If you don't have that leadership component, it's not going to work.
And why you need somebody helping you through implementation? Why you, Brent's taking a bow. Why you?
You guys really get both sides of the equation with us.
We do.
Like 100%.
And look,
That's why it works.
The vantage point is why you need somebody helping guide you through implementation is because you just don't have all the answers and you've got some blind spots. I'll give you an example. We're on site this week at one of the platforms, not us collectively, but our team. And it's like 2 months straight where there's a technician, we just personality tested him. He scored like a 93% fit. This guy should have, frankly, some of the best numbers in the country.
What test did you give him?
We'll talk about it. But he should have one of the best lifetime values across the country in any business anywhere. And so they've been battling 2 months to get this guy to follow the process. And so while we're there doing a couple change management pieces, I'm like, dude, you know what? Go have a meeting with this guy and find out. There's no way he tested that well. And as a technician, there's no way he tested that well and he just doesn't want to do it. Like it's applied for the position. He's a 93% fit for an HVAC technician. And so they have the meeting with the guy this morning. Naturally, they take him through the process because we've done this. We uncover that the guy just didn't understand what the management team was trying to get him to do.
And he didn't want to ask?
No. He was like, this doesn't make sense
I
to
think
me.
that happens.
Why am I going to, I'll give you an example.
But it didn't make he
was
wasn't bought into it.
He was say, why am I going to reprogram the motor? I don't think that's helping the customer. And so
They get
and they were
lost
like,
in the sauce.
They were like trying to say, let's flip this guy over to install. Let's flip this guy over to service project. He doesn't want to help the customer. First call he ran, he flipped it, $30,000 sale.
They get lost in the sauce because they don't understand the whole picture. They got to, and our managers, my managers are listening right now, and they can get sad, upset or not. We do that all day long. We understand at the management level. We do not explain it well enough to the team for them to understand it long term, and they get lost in the sauce, and then they kind of check out mentally. And when you're not being fulfilled in your job, you check out. Yeah. Right?
No,
and
100%.
And then the upper management's looking like, that used to be my high performer. That used to be this. He's capable. I saw his disc score or whatever we did. I know that there's no way that this is what's happening, but there was a breakdown between here and then sometimes the management team there doesn't want to humble themselves to say, I could have probably actually been the problem there because I didn't explain it well enough.
Yeah, no, I think you said that super succinct.
And it's a humbling experience to be a manager of a trades company.
Things get lost in translation.
Yeah.
And so, but the backed up answer, which is why I loved when you said, hey, let's do a podcast on Call by Call. I loved it because I know there's a lot of stigma about it, but why I loved it because I told Landon, I said, we're going to get on this thing and we're just going to say to everybody that Call by Call is just like what you actually want your service manager to do. It's just it. It's just, is he doing it? Right? Because you get chronological. Sorry.
Yeah.
You and I actually, had that before. When you
our
search
Call
for
by Call
Cassie
manager
Lewis,
is a female, by the way.
Yep.
Mine is a female also.
and so, but chronologically in the virtual ride along stuff, you get to see, okay, when that tech or plumber missed that step, what management action step was taken live, and that
And they
is
don't
usually,
like it.
that's usually
where-
the leverage you need to affect change. Is what are we not managing, right?
I think a lot of people, we've had a lot of conversation here, and still, and I don't know, maybe what are you comfortable with sharing? Because I'm not asking you to give away your sauce, right?
Where are we
What are you
at?
comfortable with sharing?
We answered all the questions.
Yeah, we're doing.
Okay,
fine.
we have
We've got
5
like 5
minutes.
minutes or
Cassie's
so.
I was on a roll.
What? Yeah, she knows that my biggest fear or my biggest frustration
Tap, tap.
ever is
Time clock.
interrupting me.
What? That's your what?
Literally, I'm just kidding. What are you? Because I don't know if we've really gotten to the meat of what even call by call is. I'm not asking to give your secrets away, right? Because there's probably not really any secrets here. What does call by call mean? If I was someone that didn't really know much, how do I implement call by call in my business?
Yeah, so I mean, why you hear about, and those that are listening would say it, there's a lot of struggling implementations of call by call. A lot of people try to self-implement. A few of the platforms tried, and it caused friction and turnover and change management, because it's just like anything else. There's a playbook, right? But all it boils down to is how you manage the service call process, right? Just like when you build the process, this is what success looks like in the basic level of call by call. You can bring 20 technicians in the room, 5 technicians in the room. You say, guys, let's get on the whiteboard. This is what success looks like. This is what's going to give us our opportunities, and this is what's going to keep our customers happy. This is how we're going to stay in business. And then once you put that in the old school way, once you put it on a whiteboard, everybody says, rah, rah, I'm bought in. When they walk out the door, you lose all sight.
And then your
The
service
shit
man,
hits
your
the fan.
dispatcher dispatches the first 4 calls. Your service manager got caught up with some BS from
Exactly.
yesterday. They're not paying
By
attention.
your third call of the day, it's all over.
And then the tech,
done.
but we only want the techs to run 3 calls. But the service manager was too caught up with the bullshit of yesterday and 3 days ago to manage those 3 calls right now. And then we're already done.
Firefighting. Yep.
Yeah.
And or then there's like, well, then I got to dedicate a role to this, which is what a lot of people do when they try to self-implement. They're like, I'm going to make this guy. But they got no idea it's the right person. They got no idea. Once
to
that guy,
compensate that person,
yeah, how to compensate them. When they have to redirect the techs, then they just start pissing off techs. And then guess what? The techs call Brent. And Brent's like, why the fuck you calling me? Call your manager. Like, they fucking told me to do something I don't want them to do. Well, you think I'm going to tell you something?
That's hard to break too.
It just creates this whole cycle. And so all call by call is, as a leader, if you're going to self-implement, whatever, do it yourself. Fine. But you've got to make sure you are 100% focused in helping your guys remove the obstacles that are standing in the way for why they're skipping the steps. And that's not easy to solve.
Well, it's not that, but it's like,
You need
but you're
extra
not
ice.
waiting for the tech. I think some enlightening things, as I've just kind of researched some things in the past 6 months or so, is I know at our company, our service managers are waiting for the technician to call them. And it's like,
That's a good point too. That's a good
you
point
should
too.
be paying attention.
Proactive, yeah.
Before you should be checking the
It's
pictures,
a
checking the
management
things.
system. It's not a tech system. It's a management system.
Yeah, it's not. You're not waiting for them to call and tell you what you want to know. You should already know.
You're not making sure
in
they're
live,
clicking
in
boxes.
moment.
You are taking ownership of all those calls. Like somebody has to take ownership besides technicians of all the calls that are on the board. And again, like if it was you and 3 techs, it's you because it's your money, right? Somebody is assigned to take ownership of all those calls and make sure that something happens that's the result that you want on every single call. And if it's not happening, then you got to stop, hold up,
Collaborate
go back,
and listen.
and stop, collaborate and listen. Go
You bring
back.
them back in the office.
And
It's
that,
like that's
and that result
Yeah.
might be
it's uncomfortable.
they've got a perfectly fine system and it's upgraded and it's like, okay, get them on a
That's
maintenance
fine.
plan, right? Like,
Well, and that's the thing too is our people get.
Yeah.
it's just making sure when you have the ball on the
But
tee,
you
you
make
don't
sure
miss
that
the
everything
ball.
happened
Yeah.
is according
We're
to
not
plan.
asking.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing too is like for our company specifically, we schedule 30 HVAC calls a day. When we're all constantly telling our technicians we need 5 or we need these leads, right? We're not explaining to them that we're actually only searching for that day for like 5 or 6 of 30.
Yeah.
If you can't turn over 5 or 6 of 30, when you look at it in math like that, it's kind of like that's all we're asking for.
Even worse. Let's say that your goal is that 6, and your goal every
That's a
day
good
is
point.
30 and 6. So your goal is that 6, right? And you get that 6. What happened on the other
24
that
you
you
had
paid
16
thousands of dollars
zero-ticket
for
jumps.
lead for, and did all these things? Like, why could it have been 20 out of 30?
Right.
Or what happens if
Right.
your revenue per lead is $3,000 and you didn't need 6, you actually needed 10.
When
Right?
you
And so whether that
marketing
means
costs go
increasing your
down.
single job counts,
Yeah.
or that means having more productivity by holding the sales process to a higher, whatever that is, right? If you don't start with the numbers,
You're
and
just-
I'm not. This is absolutely nothing to do with you guys. But what if 6 wasn't the number? And in
Exactly.
a general sense, what if who said 6 is the number?
Right. What if
Like
6 isn't the
SGI
number?
back in 1993 or Airtime's like, well, 20% is the number, and so. But who the fuck said that's the number?
And it might not be because, but in truthful, and to your point too, sometimes I think where our technicians get confused too is, and then it kind of makes me laugh when sometimes these same technicians are like, I'm going to go run my own business. And I'm like, but you never understood this part, okay? Because yes, you went to a house that was a brand new system and there's not much that's going to happen there. Fine. We were still there for a service.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't asking for the grand slam there. The grand slams come from the consistency of every call,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean,
because look, here's what happens, right? A lot of people, again, because you don't implement from day one, because you don't know, you're just building a business, running calls, serving customers. A lot of friction point with call by call means you got to put a stake in the ground and you got to start. Well, guess what? That means that on 80% of your calls, they're existing customers. On 80% of those calls, you're about to tell people things that you've never told them before. And so they're going to say, well, why the hell? You must not be telling me the truth, because if it's this bad, why didn't you tell me about it last time? Right? And so then it's like, well, if it was this big problem, you were out here 6 months ago, so did you do it? Or why was this not was communicated back then? And so it becomes even more important. You don't have a choice but to start today and put a stake in the ground and have those tough combos, because the other 6 new customers you're going to run today, if you don't put the discipline in place, whether it's an opportunity or not, guess what? Those are just going to be 6 pissed off
Delaying
people
it.
later.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot of like, you really are discounting yourself by not being thorough, because when they call us back out for the issue you didn't speak to them about, you just invalidated your experience
credibility.
and
Yeah, who
that
you
and
could
you
be-
even knew
charged
what
them
you were
money
doing.
and they're pissed
Who are they going to
off
be mad
about
at? They're
it.
going to be mad at the tech.
Yeah, because
so-
you dummy. Don't send me but that tech back. He's stupid. He doesn't even know. And you're like, and he's like, oh, I knew, but I didn't think they had the money for it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You have to tell them what's wrong.
And so that's all. Look, call by call is just making every call count. And then if you're doing it, continuously error proofing, reviewing the calls, meeting with management, enrolling them in the process, elevating their mindset, finding out why they skipped the steps, finding out what the customer said, and then reinforcing an updated protocol. Because it's not always that you have all the answers as the manager, like you're in your ivory tower, you make what you think is the best. But once you find out those steps are skipped, you bring that person in. Hey, why'd you skip these steps? This is the protocol. We're not going to deviate from the process. We're either going to do it, or we're going to improve it. Because you might have valid feedback. You might have the best idea in the world. But if you do, then that needs to be the protocol.
I think the biggest takeaway for me in this is call by call management. And there's going to be a lot of people that are frustrated because in their minds they thought they've been doing it. Is call by call management is live in the moment management. It is not waiting for the technician to call you. It's not
It's
at
not
the end of the
day
call.
looking
think
at
you-
the number.
It's not.
I think that's the best explanation I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's not I'm waiting for the tech to call me, or I think this is this, or they called me because they needed help to close, or whatever. Live in the moment. I'm watching the pictures. I'm waiting for
Listen,
pictures.
if
I
our
told them-
techs haven't checked in 20 minutes after they've diagnosed, we have a manager on the phone with them. Why haven't you updated Slack? Why don't we see a picture of this? Like, you are in a backpack on their back.
And when they don't do it, right? You made a cover over point. You route them back to the office, because why would you send them another call if they're
Right.
skipping
They
steps?
don't get dispatched to
Right.
another call. And they
But-
get to talk to Doug.
but-
And
like-
then the dispatcher's like, well, because we were busy today, but we're jeopardizing the customer experience.
exactly right.
Our I live and die by our core values. Our core values, one of them is being a solution provider. And I immediately go to how in the hell can we be solution providers if we're skipping 7 steps and not diagnosing everything, and they're pissed off at us in a year when something broke that we should have caught or at least alerted that might have been an issue later.
Yeah, because it's not a hard sell. It's just like, hey, did you know your blower was this
That's
dirty?
what this is.
Right? Did you know that vent sitting over your stove where you cook every day is blowing out 80% of the day? That stuff on your food. I mean, have the combo. I don't need you to tell them $1,100 UV light. It's magic. I just need you to tell them, did you know it was this dirty?
Yeah, people, and I think, again, we get into, we're just trying to damage our trades and sell this. Yeah, do you know what? At McDonald's, when they ask you if you would like an apple pie, you don't go to McDonald's, right?
I actually,
Okay.
it's one of my sweet treats.
Okay,
He
good.
does.
I love
after
the apple
he
pies
does a
from
cold
McDonald's.
But when
plunge
you
and
go
drinks
to
his
the
green
Apple to
smoothie.
McDonald's, they ask you if you want an apple pie because that's the freaking process, and that they're supposed to ask you those things. And everybody, and so when they're like, well, I can't believe we're hard selling HVAC and plumbing. McDonald's is selling you. Why would HVAC
it's not
not
really
sell
hard
you?
selling,
It's not
it's
hard selling.
educating.
It's
It's
education.
educating.
But look, without call-by-call management,
How
who
would-
knows? The guy might run 90 calls, and at that point, his take on the process might be that, Mr. Customer, I got it. Like we do static pressure cool down. His take on the process might be, well, Mr. Customer, my management wants me to turn your unit off if I discover this problem. So click, it's off, and then the customer's calling and irate. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, where about our meeting this morning did you get, I want you to hard press the unit shut down? I just got to make sure before you turn it off, you tell them that it's a problem, because when you flip it back on, they're going to think you broke the shit.
Well, we have
if
to
they-
actually have them sign something on a leak if they won't let us replace it, because we don't want them coming back on us and filing insurance
I think
claims.
that's- well,
Which
you-
we learned
you-
this
you
the
live-
hard way.
You lived through it, right? But that's because you got Brent. Brent's like, you're going to know. I'm going to have documentation.
We're like,
Even-
we'll
even
turn
better
it on,
analogy-
but we're going to sign this so we don't have an insurance
Yeah,
claim
yeah.
later.
Even better analogy than McDonald's. Like, if you want to be looked at as a professional that is skilled at your trade, and like this is your expertise, it's like you go to the doctor and you get your general checkup, and the doctor knows you have high blood pressure through the roof, and you got some weird lumps. And like, even though you're having a rough day, he's like, oh man, this guy's having a rough day. I'm just gonna send him an email about it later.
This has been Power Women of the Trades. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review and Apple. And make sure to listen to our other episodes wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.